Blackwood Forest loomed. It was a brooding presence, always watching. The village huddled at its edge, clinging to the last vestiges of sunlight. The villagers called it Shadow's Edge. It was an apt name. Shadows seemed to pool here, seeping from the trees. The forest was their lifeblood and their curse. It provided for them, but it also held dangers, whispers and shadows. Things best left undisturbed. The villagers knew this. They remembered the stories. They heeded the warnings. Mara was different. She was new to Shadow's Edge. The stories were just tales to her, spun for long winter nights. The warnings were like the calls of crows, meaningless noise. She saw the forest's beauty, its untouched mystery. She felt its pull. The villagers warned her. "Don't go into the woods," they said, "not after dark, not alone." Their words were met with a smile and a shrug. Mara would not be deterred. The sun dipped below the horizon. The sky turned a bruised purple. Mara stepped into Blackwood Forest. The air grew instantly cooler. The light dimmed, swallowed by the dense canopy above. The forest floor was soft beneath her feet, a carpet of decaying leaves. She walked deeper, the village at her back. That was when she heard them. Whispers. Faint at first, like the rustling of leaves. The whispers grew louder. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. From the trees themselves, she thought. The forest was changing. The trees grew taller, more twisted. Their branches reached out like skeletal fingers. She came to a clearing. In the center stood an enormous tree. Its bark was gnarled and ancient, and there within the bark were faces, hundreds of them, staring out at her. The whispers intensified. They were all around her now. Trapped in the whispering wood. The air crackled with energy. An archway shimmered into existence beneath the ancient tree. It pulsed with an eerie green light. Mara, her curiosity battling a growing unease, stepped through. The world dissolved. She was surrounded by fog, a swirling white mist. The whispers were deafening now. They pressed in on her, cold and damp. Panic welled up inside her. She tried to turn back, but the archway was gone. She was lost, trapped in a world of whispers and shadows. A desperate flight. Mara ran. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to get out of this place. The whispers followed her, mocking her fear. They seemed to twist around her ankles, trying to trip her. The trees here were different, their bark black and slick. Their branches were bare, devoid of leaves. The air was thick with the smell of decay. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs screamed for rest. The village of silent whispers. A light flickered in the distance. Hope surged through her. She stumbled towards it, her breath ragged. The light led to a clearing. In the center stood her village, but it was wrong. There was no sound, no laughter, no barking dogs, no life. The villagers were frozen in place, their faces blank and emotionless. It was like a macabre puppet show. The voices of the lost. The whispers surrounded her, colder now, filled with sorrow. And then she understood. These were not the voices of monsters or demons. These were the voices of the lost, the villagers who had ventured into the woods and never returned. Their whispers were warnings, their stories a plea. They were trapped here, forever bound to the forest. Mara was not the first to be lured in, and she realized with a chilling certainty she wouldn't be the last. The forest holds its secrets. She closed her eyes, focusing on the memory of the archway. With a surge of desperate will, she pictured it, the pulsing green light. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the clearing. The ancient tree loomed before her. The faces in its bark seemed to stare accusingly. She didn't linger. She ran, back through the forest, not daring to slow down, not daring to look back. A warning carried on the wind. She burst out of the trees, gasping for breath. The village lights were a welcome sight. She had escaped. But the experience had changed her. The whispers still lingered in the back of her mind. She would never be able to forget the faces in the bark, the sorrow in the voices. She became a guardian of sorts, warning others away from the forest. And when they asked how she knew, she would only shake her head and whisper, "The woods told me."